Hey guys, Mustached Tom here to review the movie Borderlands. Now, getting into this, I will say, when the initial trailers came out, this movie was already on a bad track to not looking particularly great. Probably even worse campaigning or trailer, you know, shenaniganery than even Mario, which was the last, that was already considered, at least from my objective lens, pretty mediocre, all things considered. So, with that being said, the trailers didn't look like they were painting this movie in a great light. I will say, it's been a while since I've played, personally, Borderlands 1 or 2. I've played both of them so far. I was about to start jumping into Borderlands 3 at a point, but I have a lot on my plate currently, so that can wait a little bit longer. And so I at least recognize four of the characters, that being Lilith, Roland, Tina, and the Claptrap itself. Tannis is a name I'm semi-familiar with. I don't remember if she was a playable character or more of an NPC in the original games. I don't remember. It's been far too long. Anyway, so Borderlands, for those who might not be in the wherewithal, is a first-person shooter game with a lot of, potential for weaponry, guns specifically at the forefront, with a little bit of variety of how you can utilize said class you are in the games. And the initial opening segment of, at least from what I can remember from both Borderlands 1 and 2, is that they would sort of, it almost had a very movie-esque type opening where it would be like, this is the character, and it would pause, and it would, take, throughout be interlude with music. Sort of like the movie equivalent of, I'm gonna struggle to the Suicide Squad, the original one, the not great one. So it had that vibe to it, at least in terms of an opening. That being from 1 and 2, from what I can remember. There are definitely quite a few characters I could have seen also being in this movie. There's the guy with the bird. I know his name begins with the M. Mikolai? Something like that. I don't remember. It's been a long time, so I don't remember his name exactly. And then, of course, the ninja who I played as originally as, I believe his name was Zero. So, those are two other characters, I thought that could have also been in the movie, but whatever. And this movie takes its, tries to tell its own narrative, which, I will grant that is something to consider, all things considered, that Borderlands already has, a set of 3 stories to sort of take from. Anyway, this movie in particular, we're going to look at it as objectively as possible, and I've already seen some reviews on the not so positive side, and this movie is not tracking well at all. But let's actually just go through with it. So the movie follows with some narration about destiny and about how there's this grand, mission via destiny, and how these fragments of slash MacGuffin keys are spread out through the planet named Pandora. And, it's going to be up to our ragtag group of heroes to come together and find them. So we start off the movie with tiny Tina being found by Roland, and her being quote-unquote the destined one, at least initially. That's what she believes anyway. And he rescues her from some tech rivalry company, and they pick up along the way Craig the Psycho, who just decides to tag along, I guess. Yeah, I don't really get it, and that is initially the problem. You have this big cast of characters, and, this feels like it's playing very much into the movie that I would think that this would try to follow in terms of, its footsteps is Guardians of the Galaxy, if anything, right? You had this, movie where you had a bunch of unknown heroes, a very musically inclined opening, and you kind of get a great understanding of who these characters are relatively early on, versus here, where we're just sort of stockpiling up, and we're already up 3 people, and we're not that far in, and we don't really understand who Roland is. I mean, I might as well just say he is just Kevin Hart playing Kevin Hart, because I don't see the character of Roland. I don't know what he is in terms of this particular story, other than a guy with a gun. And Craig being a psycho, I don't know anything else outside of that fact. Now, I will grant, this, at least for this character, they managed to keep his mask on for the majority of the movie, which is quite impressive. Because there is a lot of movies where, it's like, oh, you gotta see the actor's face, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you don't always have to, and a bit of his mask does get chipped away, near the end of the film, but I digress. Point being is that he just sort of joins them along the way. And we cut to elsewhere. We begin to follow Lilith, our main character. And Lilith is straight from the video game. She is a siren. I believe her lore in the originals that she was always a siren. And I guess this could be said as a prequel, quote-unquote. Though I don't know if this is going to be considered canon in the Borderlands lore. Because, there's stuff you could do if you wanted to continue, like Borderlands 2 in a movie format. You still have Crazy Jack. That was like a big part, I believe, of both part 1 and 2. I think he was in both of those, if I remember correctly. I don't know if he's in 3. Again, haven't played it yet, but anyway. So, she is in the bar, and she combats some people that are trying to cause her trouble, trying to hire her on. She's a mercenary currently. And this Atlas guy is like the lead of them and then gets killed in the process. And she takes on this bounty when her bounty, the one that she's trying to bring in, gets killed along the way. So she gets paid to go to Pandora to pick up Tina and bring her back to the Creator, or her father. So she begins to ask some local kids about the area, or where they might have seen her. Then, along her travels, she's picked up by Marcus, the gun merchant in Borderlands, and he's here to be the ride guy, which that was a separate character if I'm not mistaken, so I already fucked that up. in terms of keeping the lore consistent to the characters, but I'm not surprised, considering. So we learned some more facts, like Roland is wanted. Again, don't know why. I mean, we kind of know why, but he's going against the rivals, who I guess just they were the ones who gave him the notice or whatever. Meanwhile, a claptrap spots our main character, and with the ability to scan, it scans the photo of her, Tina, that being, is able to pinpoint the last location that she was seen at. So they begin to head over there. Claptrap just sort of begins to follow her. So they get to Tina. Tina tries to temporarily fight back. We see her versus Craig, the psycho, and one of our antagonists named Knox, who switches sides, which we'll get to later on. And then she's like in the big company, and she's trying to also capture Tina, but tricks her too, using her bear bombs, because that's her gimmick, I guess. You know, she was an NPC, but I guess she became a character now. Anyway. So Roland returns to see them in the situation we find ourselves in. We don't know why he left, and we don't know... Yeah, we just don't know why he left, I guess. But he's back now. So they get in a vehicle once more. And Claptrap is falling behind as they're followed by Knox and her militant group trying to stop them. So they take turns fighting off the enemy and take a side path into this gaseous trail where this creature-like entity, this worm-like creature, attacks. Roland decides to blast through it with his guns and plow through it simultaneously while blasting through it, and they manage to get through that. So they take a miniature pit stop, where you would think at this point they would have an opportunity to expand on their characters, but they focus more so on exposition in the vaults. Or the vault, rather. So, we don't really get anything new. Except, you know, that's their mission. Regardless of whose team you're on, it's all about getting to the vault now. So, they go to Sanctuary, which is a location known in Borderlands, so this has to take place either before or during 1 and 2, because I believe at some point Sanctuary gets fucked up. In Borderlands, if I remember this correctly. Again, trying to remember the lore here. And Marcus is there too, I guess. I guess that was his final pit stop or something, I don't know. Anywho, they go to Moxie, a recognized character in the Borderlands lore, who gives them their next clue via going up this elevator, where they finally meet Tannis. And Tannis and Lilith actually do have a little bit of history here. Dealing with Lilith's mom. And we get more exposition about how Tina believes she is the chosen one. She is some sort of Urdian, I believe is the word they use here. And she's the chosen one, blah blah blah. Meanwhile, while all that's going on, while they're talking with her, Claptrap begins to suddenly, and for whatever reason, begins to just suddenly roam around and get themselves caught and followed. So the rest of the group needs to get out of there. So they go through the garbage set to, get out. and make their way through the sewers, which is where they know the next key is located. So, Claptrap opens up the door. He then proceeds to be a distraction, and all the psychos that are down there begin to shoot at him, while our group of misfits sneak around. And Lilith just happens to find the second key. She was guided to it, as it were, which is rather convenient, but I guess it ties into the obvious setup that she's the actual part of the key or whatever. But, I don't know, spoilers? Like, I'm not gonna bother saying that beforehand. It's not like this movie is great or good by any means. So the team escape, with Roland sticking behind and using some of the weaponry that Tina left for him. And it cuts away as the rest of the group make their way up into this old mine, where the rest of the baddies catch up with them. Before that, Tennis shows Lilith a map of where the third part is, and that her mentioning how it's actually, again, Tina, still accordingly, and how she will be consumed by the key, or a part of the key, or whatever. So, it seems as if this is all fine and good, I guess, because they're still on board with doing it. So we get some flashbacks of the initial part of Lilith's hometown when she sort of gets her onto this area. She was like sent away, the mom stayed behind. That's all I can tell you about the flashback. Meanwhile, Craig, the psycho, manages to be the one who finds the door to the vault. So Tina places the key and steps on the pad to be the active person, and as her father comes up, and her squad and Nox also comes up, so everyone's here. All of our heroes and antagonists are all grouped up in this one spot. We see that he is shielded. We learn, for whatever reason, that Nox sides with the group all of a sudden, which comes completely out of nowhere. She gets killed instantly, so there's that. Then after that, whatever was that, Tina just steps up, finds out that she's not the one. Lilith, Lilith's like, oh, I'll do it and make sure everyone's safe, blah, blah, blah. So this is how Lilith gets her wings, also known as a siren at this point, so again, this is why I'm assuming this must be a prequel to Borderlands, because she was already a siren at the offset of the game, the first game, if I'm not mistaken. And she can make her group temporarily invincible, I guess. But when her power is removed temporarily, her powers are removed from everyone else. But she's able to power down and take down a massive ship in the process. But the father pulls Tina into the vault, and Lilith follows quickly behind into the vault as well. So she uses her in absurd speed all of a sudden, being a siren who can also teleport now, and I guess being in this zone makes her be able to do the teleporting part, I'm not sure. She's able to remove the shields and pull Tina away. Meanwhile, the father is pulled away by the tentacle creature and sucked into death. And once the heroes walk away, they enjoy a fireworks show after the fact, finding nothing else in the vault other than these cube things, by the way. And that's Borderlands. Yeah. This was clearly not very well thought through. You'd think that, even on top of all that, you think that there would be a heavier emphasis on, copy, sort of mimicking the aesthetic of Borderlands in terms of, like, how it's presented as, that. There's some of the creature design, which is whatever, that's all cool and Borderlands-y. That's fine. So they got that part down, but they weren't able to get down the aesthetic opening sequence, which is bizarre. They weren't really able to tell us who these characters are, and what they wanted. It just became, these are a bunch of people coming together and doing a big major fetch quest in which the end result is they end up actually getting nothing other than Lilith's upgrade. And then that's that. So yeah, it's not great. Pretty surprising. I mean, Borderlands is, at least 1 and 2 were considered really beloved. Borderlands 3, not as much as from what I could have heard thus far. Again, haven't played it myself. But there is a heavy emphasis on just moving things along. And the primary issue with that, fellow new writers or people watching my content, I always try to explain how to get better, or how to make things better. So, in this context, what you want to do, if you have a group of characters, because this is something I'm very familiar with in my own book of Syndicate X, is you want to make sure that your characters are not only distinct, which visually speaking, sure they are, but who they are, that's also just, more important, more than the visuals, if anything. Who are these characters? Why should we care about these characters? That should be at the offset of who these characters are. And like I said, there are ways of going about doing that could appeal to the Borderlands aesthetic. Again, you could do the whole pause and you get all the stats of who the characters are, and you even get their backstories or like their catchphrase or whatever it is in Borderlands that they do during the text scroll thing that pops up for each character. There are little bits like that that can flavor up a character minorly, though. You still have to put in the work. They do a little bit with Lilith, with her mom, but outside of that, there isn't really much to chew on. There isn't really much to get invested in. There's Roland. Who's he? Why is he, a mercenary or whatever he's meant to be? What group is he even a part of? He has a bounty. Explain why he has a bounty in the context. Better than just, he suddenly just has a bounty. Did he have a bounty before taking on this quest? Like, what led that? Tell us who these characters are. Really let us devour these moments. And, I think they try to off-spin Claptrap as being the obvious comic relief. They do the bottom of the barrel, very flatulent-based jokes for most of his material, I guess, which is whatever. Other than making fun of the psychos, I guess that was a little bit like, okay, there's like a little bit of charm in that performance. or during that sequence. And I saw someone else's review on this before I went to make mine, and I do agree to an extent. Someone else mentioned it. I don't know if it was Jeremy Jones I was watching, or Johns, or whatever his name is. How he was mentioning how this seemed like it was rated R initially, and then it was like pushed to be PG-13. And that, to me, does seem to come across very true-ish. Again, in appearance. And the scene I definitely would turn to for that would be the scene where Claptrap is, like, mocking all the psychos and then getting, bullets ridden into him. Because the mocking bit is like, it feels like he would have went harder on them in an R-rated version, but it was like, they're just like tiptoeing on the edge, which is like, oh, this seems like it's very fit to be PG-13 right here, specifically, and that definitely comes across throughout the rest of it, especially during that segment. If you isolated that segment, you'd probably go, oh, that seemed like it could have been rated R easily, but it wasn't. Anyway, in terms of a score, I'm not gonna pretend like this movie is a 0 out of 10, which is apparently what Rotten Tomatoes had for it at a point. That would be a non-functioning movie. So, I'd probably give it a 3 out of 10. I think that's a bit better, or a bit more fitting, in terms of, like, you can see a little bit of work in terms of, again, it's more on the some of the aesthetic of Borderlands that is coming through, visually speaking anyway. Some of the story bits for how weak they are is just, it's threading along, like, you just go one place after one place after one place. So they're trying to keep the movie moving, is the outcome. And you definitely had a scene, or a potential for a scene, to actually have a moment. This is like where they rest up, right before the old mine, where you could just really lay out and expand upon it. On who these characters are. I mean, granted, it probably behoove the creators or anyone else into writing. My personal preference at character creation is that when you introduce a new character, it is often, within a few minutes of their introduction, that you establish at least who they are in a basic sense, at least what they want. Something to get the audience to be like, okay, I can understand what this character is meant to be fairly early on, and then expanding upon it further as they move the movie along. So this definitely feels like a movie that could have been expanded, made a little bit longer in terms of what was allotted in movie time. Or just utilizing the time better. Cut the opening narration completely, just jump right into who these characters are. As an example, let sort of the exposition take that, which is the opening narration about this whole bullshit about Destiny and how the main character feels about it. Cut that out completely and replace that with jumping right into, our escape, or our entrance of perhaps Roland. Maybe he's given a briefing over some sort of device, and maybe he's piping himself up, and that could be our who is Roland? What kind of character is he? What is he prepping up to do to get into this mission to save Tina? Like, something like that could be like an example of like how you would fix this, at least in the opening segment. And then, you know, when he gets to Tina, and, you know, during his little escapade of during the mission, like, if you want to, again, keep the aesthetic of Borderlands, like, as soon as he enters the screen, you do the pause, and you do the little, you know, the character swipe of who he is, what his name is, his catchphrase, or whatever he's about. Yeah, you could do that whole bit. I don't think that needs to go away by any means. I don't see why it needs to. Again, that felt very Borderlands in terms of what type of game it was, so that didn't translate to the movies, I guess, but whatever. But getting back on track, like, talking about like how much you would have to do to fix this movie, you know, again, you get him to Tiny Tina, you do the pause thing again, and as you're escaping, you quickly establish who Tiny Tina is as they're escaping, which could be a little bit trickier to do. You know, you might need to divvy up some time later on, since this is a little bit more of a tension-based scene simultaneously. And figuring out what Craig is in terms of he just happens to be a psycho who sides with them for some reason. Like, that comes across as very, I don't know. It doesn't fit, you know? Nothing about that meshes. And maybe it might have just been the character. Again, maybe you could remove Craig entirely from this story. Because I feel like out of all the characters, he's the one that makes the least amount of sense in terms of like how this group fits together, you know? I mean, I get his purpose in terms of weaponry is to be the physical guy. That makes sense. But in terms of how he interacts with the other characters is what's very confusing. Again, if he's meant to be a psycho, why would he side with Roland? What is it about him, you know, Craig, that would get him to follow? You would have to have something about his character that would, you know, agree to that. I don't know, maybe like Tina gives him a rabbit, and then that doesn't blow up, and then he's like, "Aw, I love this little guy, I'll follow you." I don't know, something stupid but silly like that. It could be something small, right? I don't know, something to be like, okay, I can see why a psycho would like fall in love with a bunny. That seems outrageous enough to like fit a psycho that would like suddenly follow these people. I don't know. Like, something. It doesn't feel like there's anything there. And then, you know, you cut to Lilith, do the same thing, you know, the whole intro bit. And, you know, I think her stuff with her mom is fine. I would expand upon it, mayhaps a little bit. Maybe, like, one additional flashback early on to show what the mom was like specifically before all the chaos ensued. Something to that effect, I feel like. Again, just expanding upon it. And maybe who Lilith was back then versus what she is now. Maybe she was more optimistic back then. Maybe she didn't mind being on Pandora back then. All of these things to contrast her childhood versus now. These are all things that could be considered that are never done in the movie, by the way. Just these little things you can add on. That, you know, I don't think they would take that much more time. And, you know, having a character that knows another character in Tannis, that could be very effective in terms of storytelling. And, you know, it gets, like, the base rolling for those two. And it is a shortcut to a degree, but, you know, I don't even think they utilize it to the best of its ability, if I'm being honest. Like, Tannis just, like, throws Tina under the bus at a point, saying, like, oh, you know, she could disintegrate, but, you know, when they're talking about what the keys are gonna do. And then Lilith's just like, yeah, fine, I guess that's cool. It's like, that could be a point of contention. Like, there was already contention between these two characters. Why wouldn't there be? Why wouldn't they, like, stack up against each other right then and there? It seems like, again, a point of, like, expand upon that, because there seemed to be, like, this opening for something, and then they just cut it short. And it feels like a lot of that is very much this movie. Anywho, Claptrap, you know, he's a little bit of a wonky character, comic relief in the games, so, you know, not much I can say to add to that character. I mean, I get it, you know. They do take the little bit from the stair bit that he can't climb stairs, although there is a scene where he just teleports up to Lilith's house, though. There is a scene where that happens in the movie, so it's like, well, even that's not consistent. So they can't even keep Claptrap's ability to climb steps consistent. So that should tell you quite a bit about this movie and the level of care they put into that, the little aspects of character. You know, if a character has a weakness, like not being able to go up the stairs like a Claptrap isn't able to do, then, you know, keep that consistent throughout the movie. Why not? But it's durable as hell seems to be the other bit about Claptrap. Like, again, they bullet led into Claptrap at that one point, and then he just sort of like spray or sheds. I don't even know what that was at that point in the movie. Anyway, so yeah, I probably would be at a 2 or 3 out of 10 at highest. And that's my review for Borderlands. And if you ended up enjoying that, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. I want to head you over to my petition to help out small YouTubers. Second, to my PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And third, to my Discord server, you can join, collab, chill, do all that cool stuff for free. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.